As always, the self appointed conscious keepers of the world sitting in the Western capitals are angered by New Delhi's continuing engagement with Myanmar's ruling junta. The usual suspects in these nations have been urging India not to engage with the country in this state, still believing that their old age, provenly bad tactics of foreign policy in the East will work. These voices have become louder ever since the US Congress passed the Burma Act 2021, putting limited sanctions on Myanmar and authorizing the US State Department and US aid to support pro democracy activists in Myanmar and to provide humanitarian assistance in the troubled Southeast Asian nation. The latest to join this chorus, albeit a muted one, is Indonesia. Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi wants India and other countries that engage with Myanmar's military regime to support the ASEAN's 5 point consensus on Myanmar. Indonesia will assume the ASEAN's chair soon. This consensus calls for cessation of violence in Myanmar and for all the parties, the junta, pro democracy, armed groups, and others, to exercise utmost restraint. It also calls upon all parties in Myanmar to hold constructive dialogue for a peaceful solution to the strife in the country. Such advice is misguided at best for many reasons, starting with the sheer hypocrisy of singling a democratic India out when nations like China, Pakistan, and Russia have much deeper ties with the junta. Further, the advice also ignores India's regional aspirations and needs. India needs the support of the junta to tackle a handful of northeast insurgent groups who are still engaged in armed struggle. Most of the rebel groups of northeast India have either surrendered after peace agreements with the government or are holding peace talks with ceasefire agreements in place. Only a few rebel groups are active and they have their bases in western and southwestern Myanmar. Most of the rebel groups of the northeast India have either surrendered after peace agreements with the government or are holding peace talks with ceasefire agreements in place. India needs the support and cooperation of the junta to tackle these insurgent groups. The Indian and Myanmari forces have carried out coordinated operations to destroy the bases of northeast rebels in Myanmar's Sagaing and Chin provinces in the recent past. Under the policy of Act East instead of Look East, we have several major infrastructure projects lined up in Myanmar for which the support of the ruling party of the nation is essential. Foremost among these is the Kaladan multimodal transit transport project that will provide easy access of cargo from the rest of the country through Myanmar to northeast India. India is also developing industrial clusters and manufacturing hubs besides the 1813 kilometer long India Myanmar Thailand Trilateral Highway. India is constructing two segments of this highway in Myanmar, the 120.74 kilometer Kelwa Yagi section and the 149.70 kilometer Tamu Kigon Kalewa section with its 69 bridges. Work on these and some other projects had been held up for the past nearly 2 years after the coup, which triggered unrest and armed conflict between pro democracy armed groups and the junta. Many rebel groups also joined in the armed struggle by pro democracy groups against the junta. New Delhi has also been silently nourishing its ties with Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy and other opposition groups in that country. India's high stakes engagements in Myanmar make it necessary for us to engage with all the stakeholders in the country, including the junta. We must be wary of vested Western interests and stick to our independent foreign policy, keeping India's own priorities first in the implementation of our foreign policy matters.